Maddox, illustrated by Oriel Vidal. Bouncing back. My name is Amy Reed, and I was one of the top 2 track stars in the district. My biggest competition was Madison Palmer. During the last race of the season, I hurt my knee in a race against Madison, and I've been out for all of this track season. Finally, my doctor gave me permission to start running again, just in time for our last 2 track meets. I was very nervous about whether or not my knee was actually healed. It didn't help when I saw Madison training one day and I heard her coach say she had run the lap in 1 minute and 5 seconds. That is faster than I could run the 400-meter dash when I was at my best. I trained and practiced all weekend, but after trying my best at the first meet, I still came in 3rd place. I had run my slowest race ever and wondered how I'd be ready for the race against Madison just 3 days later. I went home and rushed right to my room. Almost immediately, my dad knocked on the door and asked me to come to the kitchen. Dad looked at me. We were both quiet for a long time. Finally, before I could change my mind, I told him everything. I told him about my first thoughts of nervousness, about worrying about my knee, about seeing Madison in the park, about my false starts, and finally, about my really huge fear that I wouldn't be ready for Friday's meet. It was the final meet of the year, and it was a really big deal. Madison has had 2 months of practice more than me, I finished. She's been running faster than I've ever run. Today I tried as hard as I could and ran slower than ever. Dad looked at me for a few seconds. He seemed to be thinking hard. Have you talked to Coach Joseph about any of this? He asked finally. Dad, I haven't talked to anyone about any of this, I said. Oh, honey, I don't know what to tell you, Dad said with a sigh. All you can do is your best, and you still have Friday's meet, right? I'm sure your slow run tonight was just you being nervous. Plus, you're still getting back into shape. Yeah, I said. My dad didn't seem to understand how upset I was. I needed to talk to Natalie. My sister was always really good at solving problems. Dad, I asked. I need to talk to Natalie, I said. No offense or anything, I added quickly. I understand, Amy. I'll go get her for you, Dad said as he stood up. He even looked a little relieved. Soon, my sister walked into the kitchen. Okay, Amy, Natalie said, sitting down next to me. Dad told me everything, and I have an idea. She took a deep breath. Then she went on. Why don't you go to the track in the park and talk to Madison? Maybe you can practice with her or something. That wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Are you kidding? I asked. No, I'm not. She's just a girl who likes to run, like you are, said Natalie. I sat for a few seconds to let the idea sink in. Will you come with me? I asked finally. Yeah, she said. Then she smiled. I'm not running, though. I laughed. Deal, I said. We'll go tomorrow after dinner. My biggest competition. The next day, Natalie picked me up after practice. Are you ready for tonight? She asked. No, I said. Amy, exclaimed Natalie. We talked about this yesterday. Did you change your mind? No, I said again. Madison just makes me really nervous. She always wins. I bet she's just as impressed by you, said Natalie. But I didn't think so. After dinner, I put on my running clothes. 10 minutes later, Natalie and I were heading for the track. As soon as we reached the track, I saw Madison. She was sprinting through the last 100 meters of a lap. I started to turn around, but Natalie held onto my elbow and guided me toward the track. Madison stopped running as we walked up. She squinted at us through the fence. Amy Reed? Is that you? She asked. Yeah, I said, surprised. How do you know my name? Madison laughed. Because you're my biggest competition, she said. What are you doing here? Well, I live near here, I told her. This is my sister Natalie. Natalie and Madison smiled at each other. I took a deep breath. and went on. So anyway, I was running near the track last week and I saw you practicing. I looked at my sister for help. Amy had a rough meet last night. I suggested she come to ask you for some advice, Natalie said. I mean, I know you're on different teams and everything, but she stopped. Madison had started to blush. Are you kidding? Asked Madison. I should ask Amy for advice. I was shocked. About what? I asked. Your form, Madison said. Your form is always so perfect. Then Natalie said, if you two are going to practice, you really should get started. Madison and I went to the starting line. We decided to run the first lap in our own styles so that we could see the differences side by side. We were really close for the first lap, but I was in the lead. I noticed that Madison's elbows seemed to fly out from her body a little. It was almost as if she was having trouble keeping her arms in close like you're supposed to. We went around the second turn. That's when Madison sped up. I tried to keep up with her, but I was out of energy. Plus, my knee was bugging me again. Madison beat me by about 2 meters. That's a lot in such a short race. After we caught our breath, I asked, "What's your secret?" I used to sprint the whole thing, but I was always so wiped out by the end. My coach suggested I try it a different way, Madison explained. If you run a little slower than normal for the first half of the race, you can speed up for the second half and pass everyone. She shrugged. It works really well. I thought for a minute. Okay, I said, let's run it again, and this time I'll try it your way. We ran another lap. That time I actually beat her. After we cooled down a little, I gave Madison some tips on keeping her elbows in close to her body. See, I just pretend I'm on one of those ski machines, you know, I told her, like on TV. It takes some getting used to, but keeping your elbows in really makes a difference. Finally, I noticed that the sun was below the trees, so we decided to call it a night. See you Friday, called Madison as Natalie and I headed back down the trail toward home. See you then, I yelled back. I felt happier than I had in days. Personal best. Friday morning was chilly and sunny, but by the time we changed and boarded the bus to drive to the meet, the sky had clouded over. The wind had picked up and the rain was coming down in sheets. The drive to Emeryville didn't take long, but it felt like forever. The rain had let up a little by the time we got there, but the wind was still blowing. To make matters worse, it seemed like the rain and cold were making my knees stiff. Soon we arrived at the school. Little butterflies started to form in my stomach. I was so nervous. This meet was really important meet. Anyone who finished first or second in their event would compete in the state finals. I took my position in the lane. Madison was right next to me in lane 2. We smiled at each other. On your marks! I crouched down and I faced forward. Get set! I pushed my toe as close as I could to the starting line without actually touching it. Bang! The starting gun went off. I concentrated all of my thoughts and effort on keeping up with Madison. When we hit the second curve, Madison put on a burst of speed. I was surprised to find myself right next to her. I was using Madison's method for running. So far, it was making a big difference. We were neck and neck. My knee hurt a little, but I ignored it. Then Madison pulled ahead. I pulled ahead of her for a few meters, but I couldn't keep my lead. Suddenly, it was over. Madison had won. For a second, I felt really disappointed. Yet again, Madison Palmer had beaten me. But then, Katie, my training partner, came running over. Amy, she called, sounding excited. You ran 1:05. Are you serious? I asked. I felt shocked. That was my fastest time ever. Did I really? I couldn't believe it. How had I run 1:05 with a healing knee? Yeah, you really did, a girl's voice said. I turned around. It was Madison. Congratulations, I told her. You were great. Madison smiled. You were too. Personal best, right? Your best time ever? She asked. That's gotta feel great. I smiled back. Yes, it was, I admitted. It feels pretty good. Madison laughed. Wait till the next meet, she said. You wait till the next meet, I joked. Then my knee will be totally healed, and I'll be some serious competition. Everyone cheered as the official read our times into a microphone. I could see my dad and Natalie in the stands jumping up and down. You already are serious competition, Madison said, smiling. I can't wait till the next meet.